I'm in a little bit of shock just how good fake mats are actually becoming. And I want you to make the absolute most of them. Come on, let's be honest, they're not cheap. In this video, I want to go over 9 essential, listen, these tips are so important. They're gonna teach you to make the most of the mats in every way, shape and form. If you're not familiar with who I am, I've been teaching people how to tattoo for years now online on YouTube videos like this, but also on my online platform where I've got online courses that teach people from never holding a machine right up to doing portraits. And they're all done on artificial mats. So I like to think that I've got some experience on these. I've got hundreds of lessons where I use these and I tattoo them on a daily basis. I've got hundreds of thousands of people worldwide that are using these mats. They've used every brand known to mankind and I've tested every brand under the sun. Some brands are better than others, but there's a ton of tips that you can use to make the most of the mats, use them properly, and more importantly, learn as quick as possible using these so you can get on to tattooing people and earning some good money as soon as possible. Because let's be honest, that's the end goal. As always, like most of these YouTube videos, I like to keep the best till last. So the last tip is a game changer, not just about the mats, but if your goal is to become an amazing artist, make sure you stick around. But they're all massively important, so straight on with it. Tip number 1. Naturally, we've got to start with choosing the right mats. Listen, there are tons of different valued mats out there. You've got your cheap shit to your elite stuff that is mega expensive. Your cheap stuff on Amazon, stay away from it at all costs. There's loads of people out there that use these and it causes more bad habits than actual learning. Go check out the videos on my YouTube where I discuss the mats that I prefer using. And listen, they're tried and tested. Myself and thousands of my students have all tried and we've all come up with the same decision. Skins is the way forward and I've got tons of videos on my YouTube channel. Go check them out where I go through these mats in detail. And if you're worried about the price of these mats, 1, I've got a special link and if you go on the website, there's my own packages. Wink, wink, fucking affiliate link. But that also leads me on to tip 2, which is making the most of the space. Listen, my students do this all the time. There's 2 types of learning when you're on a mat. 1, to just make the most of the space. You've got to be filling the mats. Listen, they're not cheap, but they are used as a tool to get as good as you can in the shortest time possible. There's also the mats that you want to put in a nice little frame and hang on your wall. They're the mats that you put a really nice design on to showcase your learning potential and how far you've come. But on your day-to-day mats, do your designs. And then for all those of you that are following along with my lessons, I do drills after drills after drills to implement everything we've learned. Any spare space on a mat, use the most. Do some line work drills, curved lines, joining lines, circles, shading boxes where we go from darks to lights. There's small drills to do. You can literally fill the entire mat. If you've got a gap that big, get a few straight lines in there. Let's use every single inch of the mat. Number 3, stretching. It's a hard thing to do. Listen, I can't lie to you. Remembering to stretch, because it's not a real person, it's hard to do, but please, 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 it is such a bad habit to form whilst you're on these mats. So you've got to make a mental note thinking, look, I've got my tattoo in hand, the other hand needs to be stretching that skin. We know it's not a real person, but you've just got to pretend. You've got to get into the habit. And the stretching hand, I'll be honest with you, when you are tattooing in real world on real people, it can ache like mad for them first few months to even a year because it's not used to pushing something apart with your fingers and the muscles in your hand are just not used to it. So it's something that you've got to get used to. 1, because of that benefit, but 2, on a real person, the stretch is so important to keep things consistent, especially when it comes to line work. Tip 4. Now this one is massively important because it can help eliminate one of the biggest problems that people face when it comes to tattooing fake mats. Now, clean your mat beforehand, preferably with something alcohol based. So reason being is when these mats have been produced, usually there's oil or grease or some sort of substance on them that stops stencils sticking. So just giving it a really good clean with something alcohol based so it evaporates after, and it's really good at eliminating grease or any oily products. I don't know whether it's just the transportation stuff that they use it on or it gets this oily substance on it just from the manufacturers, but it's a nightmare for when you're putting stencils on. So a really good tip to make sure that the stencil goes on nice and don't just smudge all over the place is give it a really good clean. A quick message to everybody that signed up to the membership program. Without all of you guys, this channel just would not be possible at all. So thank you. And we've got so many big plans for the future. So if you want to become a part of it and help the channel grow, and also get 2 exclusive follow along tattoo lessons every single week, plus a load more cool free stuff just chucked in there willy-nilly. It's just $14.99 a month, thereabouts, for literally as long or as little as you want. But I'll be honest with you, it's the thing that really helps us keep making these videos for you. So if you do want to be a part of it and help, check the link in the description. Thank you. Step 5, something else to help combat that stencil from smudging all over. Use a small amount of whatever ointment stencil solution that you're actually using. Unlike a person, it's not absorbing any moisture. So if I put a stencil solution on this arm, I can blather it on, but within 30 seconds or so, it's all going tacky because my skin is absorbing that moisture out of it. This artificial skin is not a person, so it's not absorbing any of the moisture. So you need to really use a tiny amount that's just going to spread over the surface and that's another really good tip. The stencil's not going to be smudging all over the place. And the bonus, as you will all know, for anybody that's tattooed mats a few times, you're not going to have to wait in fucking 3 days for stencil to dry, which another purpose-built thing into the skins mats that I recommended earlier. The stencils dry really, really quick on these. Unlike 90% of the other mats out there that you've literally got to either air dry with an air dryer or you've got to leave them overnight. There's none of that with skins, just another top tip there. So make sure you allow it time to go tacky. So tip 6, wiping the mats. I've seen it time and time again from my students. Like I said, they send videos in, so I physically see this thousands of times. We're scrubbing the mats. That's not what you do to a human being. So please, when you're tattooing artificial skin, treat it like a person. If when you're cleaning the mats, whether it be while you're tattooing, wiping that excess ink away, or just dabbing it and then giving it a little wipe where necessary, or right at the end, once you've finished the tattoo and you're having to scrub away all that excess ink, as long as you've got a good quality mat, like the skins, you do not have to scrub. It's like, I mean, some of the videos that I've seen, they might as well get a wire brush out and literally tear top at surface of skin off. They're scrubbing it that hard. You would never do that on a person. It'd just cause too much trauma and, let's be honest, fucking hurt customer. You would just never do it. So don't do it on the mats. The idea of the mats is to treat them as human beings. I mean, come on, don't get me wrong, you're not going to sit and have a conversation with, oh, you're feeling all right, does this? But we want to treat it like a human. Number 7, experiment. And it's something that a lot of people, especially those that follow my course, the course is led in a way where it forces you to experiment. But I know a lot of people that are on YouTube and just doing as they please, they fall into doing the same things. Doing fake mats. Listen, you can mess up on these as many times as you want. If you're used to using a particular needle, don't. Use different needles. If you're used to shading in a different way, let's say you just use whip shading 90% of the time, use the mats to use brush shading. If you want to try a different type of ink, if you want to try a different needle brand, the mats are the place to learn. Experiment with everything that you possibly can, because if it doesn't go right, we can just chuck it in bin. It is that simple. You don't learn or experiment on a person. That is what these mats are absolutely second to none for. And even though I've been tattooing for years, before I started tattooing, teaching people, I'd never used these mats. Now, even though I still tattoo people, I use these to my benefit. If I want to use a new technique or try something new, or I'm watching somebody on YouTube and notice he's doing it a very particular way, I've never done it like that. I'll get a mat out, I'll quickly have a little practice and think, do you know something, I'm going to give that a go on next tattoo that I do. So these mats are not just for beginners. They're not just to learn how to tattoo. They're for experienced artists wanting to try new techniques, wanting to try new methods or new things before implementing it on a person. We're nearly there. We're nearly at the golden tip. One more to go. so make sure you stick around. Tip 8, making it as realistic as possible. It kind of relates to some of the other tips, or all of the other tips in one aspect or another combined, but we need to make it as realistic as possible. So I've already mentioned it when it comes to wiping it. We won't scrub a human being to death, so don't scrub the mats to death. But what else can we do to make it even more realistic? Nobody's perfectly flat. We all do it, and in all my lessons, just for camera angles, I've got to do it on a flat surface. But there's things that we can do to make it you're practicing more realistic. We can do it on an armrest, so we can tilt the angle of the mat so it's not just flat anymore like a table, it's at an angle of whatever we choose. We can also put it on a round object, whether it be a kitchen roll, a roll mat, whatever it may be. You can use different things of different diameters to create different effects. So something small like a forearm, or something bigger as I've just shown you with the blue roll mat, resembles somebody's thigh. But the essence being, create a curved edge. Nobody's body's flat. We're typically doing arms, legs. It's the majority of a human being's body. So try and replicate that in one way or another. Tip 9, the big one, the most important one. And I say it's important because I think this is the thing that is going to make the biggest difference to your tattoo journey. Not necessarily just about the mats. It's something that I tell all my students to do, and it's something that unanimously they have said has made the biggest impact in their learning journey. And it's something that you can only do on mats. You would never do this on a person, and that is drills. Please comment if you can find a person that's going to allow you just to do a load of just lines as a drill, or a load of just boxes and then shade them from dark to light. They're not something that we're going to do on a person. But just please, I need to explain this just for a minute. If you're doing just a row of straight lines on the mats, you can instantly see if one of those lines is not right. If one of them's got a little bit of a wobble, you can see it straight away. Whereas if you're doing just a design on the mats and one of the lines is a little bit off, as a whole, you don't really notice it. So it doesn't force you to look at the mistake. Whereas when you're doing drills, whether it's straight lines, curved lines, joining lines, boxes for blocking in colour, learning how to brush shade, whip shade, I cover drills, and I use drills a lot in my online course because it highlights every single mistake. And that's not to knock anybody's confidence. That is never my intention. It's to do one thing, show you where you need to improve. So if you're doing lines and you can see that's not straight, it forces you to improve that area. If you're doing block shading and it's not quite smooth, you can instantly see it, and it forces you to do it. But you would never do these on a person. You only use what you learn into a design. These mats are perfect to hammer drills. And I don't just mean hammer them every now and again. You should be spending, especially if you're early on in your career or learning process, you should be spending countless hours doing line work drills, shading drills. Ben, what on earth are you talking about these drills? Go check out my courses and my videos on YouTube, because I do loads of drills. I really strongly advise everybody start with drills before doing the designs. Let me know in the comments if you've got any tips that are relevant to other people. What tips have you got when it comes to tattooing mats? I've just given you 9 that I think are absolutely unmissable. You can't be not applying these tips to mats. But have you got any that I've missed? Let me know in the comments, and please, if you wanted to understand more about drills, understanding how to apply stencils to mats or whatever it may be, I put a lot of effort into these videos. If you've got a video that you want me to make, let me know in the comments. Obviously, go check the channel out first. There's videos on virtually every topic. But if there's something missing, just give me a shout and I'll do my best to make one for you. As always, I'll see you at next one. Cheers.